Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's open meeting is for the Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted in accordance with the Government in the Sunshine Act. Members of the public are invited to observe, which includes attending, listening, and taking notes, but does not include participating in the meeting or addressing the Commission. Actions that purposely interfere or attempt to interfere with the commencement or conducting of the meeting or inhibits the audience's ability to observe or listen to the meeting, including attempts by audience members to address the Commission while the meeting is in progress, are not permitted. Any persons engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave the building. Anyone who refuses to leave voluntarily will be escorted from the building. Additionally, documents presented to the chairman, commissioners, or staff during the meeting will not become part of the official record of any commission proceeding, nor will they require further action by the Commission. If you wish to comment on an ongoing proceeding before the Commission, please visit our website for more information. Also, representatives from FERC's Office of Public Participation are located just outside the Commission meeting room to answer questions and assist the public with submissions and inquiries. Thank you for your cooperation.
Madam Secretary, Deputy Secretary, we are ready to begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. This is the time and place that has been noticed for the open meeting of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted by the Commission. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, since the October open meeting, the Commission has issued 61 notational orders. Thank you, Chairman Phillips.
Thank you again, Madam Deputy Secretary, and good morning to everyone. November is Native American Heritage Month. During this month, we celebrate the culture of Native Americans and the contributions they have made. I want to highlight that FERC has been engaged with tribal governments and tribal members in a cross-office effort to better incorporate their input into the FERC process. I believe it is very important that we continue to prioritize this engagement, particularly our government-to-government engagement. As many of you heard and got tired of hearing, last week was Reliability Week at FERC. And to kick off Reliability Week, I issued a joint letter with NERC CEO Jim Robb, highlighting our continued concern about the potential loss of energy infrastructure in New England and the consequences that it might have for reliability and affordability of the region's energy supplies. The Commission on Wednesday issued the final report on Winter Storm Elliott, and once again, let me highlight something from that report. Con Edison, the local gas company for Manhattan, the Bronx, and parts of Queens, faced reliability-threatening low pressures on the pipelines that it relied upon. And had they not taken action to stabilize the pressure, their entire system would have shut down, and the company would have been required to go house by house, apartment by apartment, business by business, all throughout New York. This would have taken months and months of relighting gas pilots to bring the system back on in the heart of winter. That's how serious it is, and that's why we take reliability so serious here at FERC. Finally, during Reliability Week, we concluded with an annual reliability technical conference. Throughout the day, we discussed pressing issues like resource adequacy, energy adequacy, cybersecurity, and the potential reliability impacts of EPA's proposed rule on greenhouse gas emissions for power plants. Thank you to the many expert stakeholders that came together for their productive and insightful discussion. I also want to sincerely thank the excellent FERC staff that coordinated this conference. Moving on quickly to our agenda items today. We are acting on several major project items today. We serve all stakeholders best with timely, rigorous, and legally durable decisions. I'm proud of the Commission's success in recent months. That trend continues today as we approve fundamentally important infrastructure that will serve our public interest. We also have two presentation items. Item A3 will be a presentation that focuses on the 2023 Winter Reliability Assessment. And item A4 will be on the 17th Annual Report on Enforcement. I will hold my comments and any questions that I might have on those presentations until after the team makes their presentation. So with that, I conclude my remarks and I turn to my colleagues, starting with Commissioner Danley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Clements.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to add my acknowledgement to the chairmans of National Native American Heritage Month. And in addition to thanking you for continuing the priority of working on our government-to-government consultation, I also want to acknowledge and thank our public servants here at FERC who have roots in these nations. I want to acknowledge Tuesday's issuance of the federal government's 5th National Climate Assessment. The report is a congressionally mandated interagency effort to, in the words of its authors, report on climate change impacts, risks, and responses, and provide the scientific foundation to support informed decision-making across the U.S. The report details the many ways in which the effects of human-caused climate change are already far-reaching and worsening. It is, in a word, sobering. Reading it as an energy regulator, I noted that the chapter on energy supply and delivery highlights trends we also are observing and have been for the last decade. First, much of today's energy infrastructure was designed for the 20th century, making it vulnerable to climate impacts. Second, without mitigation and adaptation, projected increase in the frequency, intensity, duration, and variability of extreme events will amplify effects on the energy system. And third, compound and cascading hazards related to energy systems and additional stressors, such as cyber and physical threats and pandemics, create risks for all, but disproportionately affect overburdened communities. These findings ring true. These are the major drivers of much of our reliability work today, adapting and preparing our energy system to new stressors with which it hasn't had to contend. The report should serve as a reminder of the importance of our collective work and that the costs of inaction are high. The cost estimates almost $150 billion a year in damages, and that's conservative. It's stated in the report that it's a conservative estimate. On a more positive note, we have solutions available. I was out in California this week in Palm Springs at the NERC's annual meeting. And first, for the first time, I want to acknowledge that the leaders of the executive committee that were nominated and affirmed this week are all women. Commissioner Julie Fedorchak, Commissioner Tricia Pridemore, and Commissioner Ann Rendall are the new president, first VP and second VP. So congratulations to them. And I was really encouraged to learn of President Fedorchak's focus on gas-electric challenges and their relationship to system reliability. She announced the establishment of a new task force that's going to be chaired by Commissioner Pridemore that affirms their view that gas-electric coordination issues are central to energy system reliability. And that's a point that was made well in the recent NASB report and also highlighted at last week's Reliability Technical Conference. So I was really pleased to see that, and I look forward to observing their progress. And that's all for me. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Christie.
Okay. Not only is the current and next two presidents of NERC women, but the immediate past president is a woman, Judy Ogman. So note that too. And speaking of Virginia, not coincidentally, there's two items on the agenda I want to speak to briefly. C1 is a very important certificate project. It is an expansion and basically a brownfield renovation of a line, a Transco line that's going to run from Danville, Virginia, over to the Hampton Roads part of Virginia and serve a local distribution company in LDC, Virginia Natural Gas. This part of Virginia has got over 2 million people. It's got major military installations. The need for this there's actually two certificates in here, but the need for this is just absolutely undeniable. And so I'm very glad that we have the support today to get that certificate approved. That's C1. C3 actually fits in with the gas electric coordination and fits in with the reliability issues that we had when we had the Winter Storm Elliott report. In both Winter Storm Uri and Winter Storm Elliott, obviously one of the problems was gas supply, and the inability of some generating units in PJM and of course in Texas for the Uri event to get reliable gas supply. C3 hasn't gotten a lot of attention. It's a unanimous vote, but what C3 is a request by Dominion to, which is a Virginia utility, our largest utility, to say that FERC does not have jurisdiction over their proposal to add on-site LNG gas storage to serve 2 of their relatively new combined cycle generating units. These 2 generating units, which are in Brunswick and Greensville counties, together represent almost 3,000 megawatts of capacity. So 3,000 megawatts is a lot of capacity when you're in an event like Elliott and PJM's reserve margins getting down, to the low single digits. These 2 plants are absolutely essential. So we are not approving the on-site LNG. That'll be for the Virginia Commission to decide whether the numbers work, whether the ROE is proper. All the issues that go into approving a facility will be under Virginia jurisdiction, which it should be. What we're simply saying in C3 is it won't be under FERC jurisdiction. But I think the idea, whether the Virginia Commission approves it or not, the idea of looking at ways to have on-site gas fuel at critically needed reliability units like these 2 is an idea, and I think you're going to hear a lot more about. So I think that dovetails really well with the whole idea of gas electric coordination and trying to get better reliability during these extreme weather events so that these baseload gas plants, and these are both baseload, these are not peakers, these are baseload gas plants, so they have the on-site fuel and they're not as vulnerable to the kind of gas supply problems that we saw during Elliott as well as Uri. So interesting item. Again, we're not approving it. We're simply saying that we're not going to stand in the way. And so that's a good step forward. So with that, nothing else to add.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Deputy Secretary, we're ready to move to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the issuance of the Sunshine Act notice on November 9th, items E3 and C6 have been stricken from this morning's agenda. Your consent agenda for this morning is as follows. Electric item E1, E2, E4, E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, and E11. Gas items G1 and G2. Hydro H1, H2, and H3. Certificate items C1, C3, C4, and C5. Commissioner Danley is not participating in items C1 and C5, and Commissioner Clements is not participating in item E8. As to E4, Commissioner Danley is dissenting with a separate statement. As to E5, Commissioner Danley is dissenting with a separate statement. As to E10, Commissioner Christie is dissenting with a separate statement. As to G1, Commissioner Danley is concurring in part and dissenting in part with a separate statement. As to G2, Commissioner Danley is dissenting with a separate statement. As to H3, Commissioner Danley is concurring in the result. As to C1, Commissioner Clements is dissenting in part with a separate statement, and Commissioner Christie is concurring with a separate statement. As to C4, Commissioner Danley is concurring in the result. As to C5, Commissioner Clements is dissenting in part with a separate statement, and Commissioner Christie is concurring with a separate statement. We will now take a vote on this morning's consent agenda items, starting with Commissioner Christie.
Noting my dissent in E10 and my concurrences in C1 and C5, I vote aye on everything.
Commissioner Clements.
Noting that I'm not participating in E8 and my dissents in part in C1 and C5, I vote aye.
Commissioner Danley.
Noting my dissents in E4, E5, and G2, my concurrence in part and dissent in part in G1, and my concurrence in the result in H3 and C4, I vote aye. Oh, excuse me, and my non-participation part in C1 and C5, I vote aye.
Thank you. Chairman Phillips.
I vote aye.
The first item for presentation and discussion this morning is item A3, the 2023-24 winter assessment. There will be a presentation by Latika Gupta from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation, Lodie White from the Office of Electric Reliability, Mark Lauby from the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, and Gilbert Gill from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation, who will be presenting virtually.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. The Office of Electric Reliability and the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation are pleased to present the 2023-2024 Winter Energy Market and Electric Reliability Assessment. This report reflects staff's analyses and forecasts pertaining to the upcoming winter, especially with pertaining to energy markets and electric reliability. The complete report will be posted on the Commission's website, www.ferc.gov. Next slide, please. More specifically, in this presentation, we summarize the weather outlook, electricity and natural gas market fundamentals, and notable electric reliability expectations across the United States this winter. So starting with weather, forecasts indicate mild temperatures this winter for the northern half of the country. Moving on to fundamentals, for natural gas, the growth in demand is expected to be slightly higher than the growth in production. However, higher than average natural gas storage levels heading into the winter are expected to compensate for the incremental increase in demand. Regarding electricity, the rate of resource additions is expected to increase 57% year over year, with the addition of 51 gigawatts as compared to the average rate of increase of 20% or 32 gigawatts per year in the last 5 years. Wholesale electricity prices are projected to decline at most major pricing hubs this winter. With respect to reliability, according to NERC data, all regions in the United States forecast enough generation available to meet their planning reserve margins through the winter. However, the regions could still face tighter than expected supply conditions if operating conditions deviate significantly from those expected for the winter. Our colleague Mark Lauby from NERC will discuss these in more detail. Finally, the regions have supplemented longstanding annual winter preparation activities such as trainings, communications, and pre-season workshops with additional winter preparation activities that were recommended in the 2 FERC-NERC joint inquiries on Winter Storm Uri that occurred in 2021 and Winter Storm Elliott that occurred in 2022. Next slide, please. Turning our attention to weather, as of October 19, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's outlook for the next 3 months suggests a 30% to 70% chance for a warmer winter in the northern part of the country. The southern half of the country has an equal chance of below or above average temperatures. Higher than average temperatures typically imply lower demand for natural gas and electricity. Next slide, please. Let's now take a look at natural gas market fundamentals for this winter. Natural gas prices for this winter are expected to be lower at every major trading hub in the country compared to the final settled futures prices of last winter. As of November 1st, the Henry Hub futures contract price averaged $3.64 per MMBTU. That's about 25% compared to last winter, 25% below last winter. As we can see on the slide, the highest natural gas price this winter is anticipated at the Algonquin City Gates hub near Boston, with futures price averaging almost $12. The New England regional market relies on imported LNG in the winter to meet peak natural gas demand, and the region continues to continues to compete for LNG volumes with Europe and Asia. So if we now focus our attention to the first 3 bars on the chart that show the Western hubs, in the West, natural gas prices are expected to decline significantly from last year's historically high winter prices. Many factors can affect traded natural gas prices. but for this winter, lower futures prices at the Henry Hub appear largely driven by above average storage inventories going into winter, as well as continued high levels of production. Next slide, please. So let's dig deeper into production and demand next. If we focus on the last two bars on this chart, we can see that this winter, total dry natural gas production is forecast to average about 105 BCFD, and that's about a 3.7% increase compared to last winter. On the other hand, total demand is expected to average about 122 BCFD, and that's about 4% higher compared to last winter. Off total demand, net natural gas exports are expected to average about 13 BCFD, and that's an increase of about 21% compared to last winter. This expected increase in net natural gas exports comes at the same time as higher demand for global LNG, as well as Freeport LNG terminals return to service, which was offline last winter. As of October 31st, total FERC authorized liquefaction capacity in the United States was 14.2 BCFD across 7 LNG export terminals. All of those are expected to be in service this winter. I will now turn the presentation over to my colleague Gilbert Gill, who will discuss electricity market fundamentals. Next slide, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Latika. Mr. Chairman, just briefly to echo my colleagues' opening remarks, pleased to be presenting today. And moving on, in these next two slides, these slides cover generation capacity changes and transmission line changes in the United States across between March 2023 and February 2024. And starting with changes to capacity, this slide shows the expected electricity generation capacity additions and retirements across different regions. And to give you some numbers, based on EIA data, capacity additions are expected to total about 51 gigawatts, which is 57% higher than the average capacity addition seen in the last 5 years. Now, most of the additions as seen in the graph on the left are from solar, batteries, and wind, while most of the expected 15 gigawatts of retirements are from coal and natural gas units on the graph to the right. All right, next slide. All right, so let's turn to transmission projects scheduled to enter service. As presented in this slide, developers plan to complete over 1,000 transmission projects, representing nearly 8,900 line miles. And the major reasons for these projects are to address things like aging infrastructure, load growth, and reliability. Now, MISO, ERCOT, and PJM account for 79% of the total transmission projects during this period. And if we focus on high voltage projects, these same three regions account for 157 projects scheduled to enter service. All right, well, this concludes our summary on electricity fundamentals, and in the next few slides, Lodie White will address the reliability expectations for this winter. Next slide.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Gil. Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, thanks for having us here. All regions in the United States anticipate adequate supplies and reserve margins under normal conditions, but face a higher likelihood of tight supply and reliability issues during extreme weather conditions. As this chart shows, the net internal demand in all regions, shown as solid bars, is lower than the available resources and net transfer values, which combines the available internal and external resources, are shown as diamonds. Long-duration cold spells and disruptions to primary and backup fuel supply are not explicitly considered in the regional seasonal risk scenarios and can cause unique risks to an area's operations. In response to these risks and past events, such as winter storms Uri in 2021 and Elliott in 2022, many regions revamped their operating procedures to better prepare for future extreme weather events. I'll now highlight some of the steps taken by select region. In ERCOT, for example, the Texas legislature and the Public Utilities Commission of Texas adopted measures that require Texas entities to file winter readiness plans specific to cold weather. ERCOT is also soliciting capacity this winter. ISO New England is implementing the Inventoried Energy Program, or IEP, for the upcoming winter. IEP is designed to provide incremental compensation for participants maintaining inventoried energy for their assets during extreme cold periods. MISO is working with generators in its South region to ensure winter readiness, given that these generators face increases in electricity demand and possible fuel supply issues during extreme conditions. The New York ISO is coordinating with interstate pipelines and local distribution companies to exchange information and promote better alignment between the gas and power systems. PJM has implemented improvements for identifying critical facilities during emergencies, increased reserve requirements, and improved information sharing between the natural gas and electric industries. Finally, SPP reports that it has completed 65% of activities that it recommended based on lessons learned from Winter Storm Uri. Next slide, please. Okay. Under normal operating conditions, all regions will have adequate generating resources to meet expected winter demand and operating reserve requirements. However, under some conditions, some regions face a higher likelihood of tight generation availability. Ongoing drought conditions in the central and northwestern United States may limit hydropower generation. The effects of El Niño also heighten the risk of extreme weather impacts. Below freezing temperatures can stress critical infrastructure for the production and delivery of energy, especially natural gas facilities, which are necessary for supplying fuel to generating units. In addition, threats of physical attacks to the grid have increased in recent years and continue to be a reliability risk, particularly if those events occur when the grid is otherwise constrained. Some regions may need to rely on operator actions during extreme winter conditions to avoid reliability issues. The risks of challenging conditions are higher in most of the Eastern Interconnection as well as in ERCOT, as described in our report. Many changes are in place or underway and could improve reliability this coming winter. Changes include installing or expanding situational awareness tools and performing site-specific generator winter preparations. Other changes include reviewing fuel supply arrangements, communication protocols, generator winterization requirements, and planning guidance. Finally, FERC staff, as well as industry, continue to monitor and address these issues and how such issues might affect reliability in energy markets this winter. Next slide, please. I will now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Mark Lauby from NERC, for additional analysis.
Thank you. Good morning, and it's still morning, isn't it? Yes. First, on behalf of NERC and my ERO Enterprise colleagues, I wanted to thank FERC Chair and Commissioners for their invitation to participate in today's meeting, and thank my FERC colleagues for coordinating the presentation. Last Wednesday, NERC published its 2023-2024 Winter Reliability Assessment, and in that report found once again much of North America is at risk of insufficient energy supplies to meet demand in severe winter conditions. The areas identified as being at risk extend over much of the eastern two-thirds of the continent, even though nearly all areas have adequate resources for a normal winter peak demand. Prolonged, wide area cold snaps will be challenging. The risk map has expanded in geographical areas since the prior winter as a result of rising peak demand forecasts and operating forecasting challenges, continued generator and fuel supply vulnerability to freezing temperatures, the increasing interconnected nature of natural gas and bulk power system that results in generator and fuel system failures, widening the impact of extreme weather. And I think this is important, the word interconnected versus interdependent. Interconnected means when something happens on one system, it impacts the other, and vice versa. And that's kind of how we got here in the reliability world for electricity. But now we have the same kind of energy system that's interconnected. As the recent winter storm Elliott and Uri have demonstrated, balancing authority operators in many parts of North America can face sharp increases in demand as electric heating systems consume more power in cold temperatures, wide electricity supplies drop off from generator outages, and reduced fuel flows and firm transfer curtailments. Next slide, please. We have identified several recommendations for the industry and our partners to reduce reliability risk for the upcoming winter. These include proactive measures for generator owners to prepare equipment and fuel switching capabilities, fuel level monitoring by reliability coordinators and balancing authorities, review of load forecasting procedures and resource reserves scheduling by balancing authorities, and coordination between load serving entities and government administrations to respond to potential energy emergencies. So to conclude, this grim warning in NERC's winter reliability assessment, like Winter Storm Elliott report, underscores the need to urgently combine addressing the underlying issues affecting the cold weather performance of the generating fleet and its fuel supplies. From the information NERC collected to prepare for this reliability assessment, there are some positive indications that there are some changes happening, certainly in the electric side of the house. Responses by the generating owners, generating operators, balancing authorities, and reliability coordinators to NERC's first ever Level 3 Essential Actions Cold Weather Alert issued in May indicate that generator owners have determined their cold weather temperature limits for their generators and taken steps to prepare critical components to operate during these temperatures. Since last year, new reliability standards are in effect that require generator owners to implement and train their the extreme cold weather preparedness plans. This is a notable progress, but ongoing efforts to complete cold weather reliability standards and implement the recommendations of the Winter Storm Uri report must continue with urgency to achieve the needed cold weather performance by the generating fleet. Furthermore, as Winter Storm Elliott demonstrated, the interconnected, and I again mentioned interconnected natural gas infrastructure and electric grid continue to be severely challenged during extreme cold weather events. Implementing the recommendations in the latest reports are important to ensuring natural gas fuel availability and is essential to reducing the winter reliability risk to an acceptable level. So next slide. The full winter reliability assessment is on NERC's website. Thank you. I turn my presentation back to my FERC colleagues.
Thank you, Mark. The full report posted on the Commission's website covers the topics discussed in this presentation in greater detail. This concludes staff's prepared comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We're happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. White. Thank you to everybody, Ms. Gupta, Gil, and Mr. Lauby and the NERC team for being here and the work that you've done on this report. It's a really important report. I hope everybody takes a moment and looks at it. There's a lot at risk here. I have a question. I have one question. We've talked a lot about New England, and New England has faced some constraints on their gas deliveries in past winters. Can you all help us explain, help us understand how this might impact the markets, how it might impact overall reliability for the region?
Mr. Chairman, thanks for asking that question. ISO New England historically has recognized concerns related to winter operations, and it continues to take steps to rectify the situation. As I mentioned during my presentation, specifically to this winter, ISO New England is implementing the Inventoried Energy Program, or the IEP, which compensates certain resources that provide fuel security. It's also retaining MISTIC units 8 and 9 as RMR units that also provide fuel security. Further, other measures that ISO New England is undertaking includes increasing the monitoring of on-site fuel at generating facilities and other fuel procurement arrangements, providing a 21-day forecast for New England's energy supplies as early warnings of potential shortfalls become available, and restricting maintenance of operations during shortage periods. The ISO is also posturing generating facilities, which is a process of limiting generators' output in order to conserve its fuel for potential use in a later time. ISO in New England is also coordinating with regional natural gas operators for awareness of real-time operating conditions, and they're also conducting a tabletop activity with transmission owners to review emergency procedures for load shedding if needed, and the transmission owner's ability to shift if there's an outage.
Thank you for that answer. It's clear we have to keep a careful eye and continue to work with our stakeholders in New England to address their resource adequacy issues, especially when you talk about extreme weather. Again, I just want to thank everybody that worked on the report and everybody that's here today. That's the questions that I have. I'll turn to my colleagues for any comments or questions they might have. Commissioner Daly.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Clements.
Thank you. Thanks, Latika and Gil and Lodie and Mark and the team for working on this presentation. And you did mention some good news, so that's a nice place to start. We have areas for optimism. Net capacity has gone up. We're expecting above average temperatures. That can ease demand in lots of parts of the country. And the futures prices for this winter are roughly half of what they were last winter. You also mentioned that the gas storage is in good shape to some extent. Of course, though, the report is telling what is now a familiar story. A large portion of our country could experience energy shortfalls if we see these prolonged periods of extreme weather. The definition of normal winter, it struck me as you were talking, is expanding, right? Even though future prices are down, affordability and reliability concerns obviously remain. And I just want to emphasize, Mark, your call to quickly implement these recommendations. And I was asked this question earlier this week at NERC, what is FERC doing? And I think we have a lot of good work in progress, as do transmission owning utilities and grid operators, but we need to continue to make progress on the need to winterize, on the value of interregional transmission, on the need for improved accreditations that the markets can send accurate price signals, and on the need of the value of demand response and dynamic load in general. So lots of good work underway and lots more to do, and thank you for providing us with more inputs into those processes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Christie.
I want to thank you all for the good report. Winter looks, hopefully, we'll get through it with some luck. Hope for mild weather, and let's hope we get it. Long term, though, the problems that we've discussed for a long time around here continue. I just was looking at MISO's third annual regional resource assessment. And MISO, just like PJM, is basically hemorrhaging dispatchable resources. The numbers that MISO had in their third regional resource report, they're looking at losing 13 gigawatts of capacity, accredited capacity by 2027. That's only 4 years away. 27 gigawatts by 2032. That's less than a decade away. And unless they get replacements for that of similar accredited capacity, again, the arithmetic doesn't work, just like it doesn't work in PJM, just like it doesn't work in some of the other regional authorities. So short term, yeah, can we get through the winter? Let's hope. Give us some luck on mild weather. Long term, the numbers aren't adding up in terms of the capacity and the resources that we have coming online, and then more importantly, they're retiring way too fast to keep the lights on. So anyway, thank you guys. Good job. Appreciate it.
Well, actually, I had a question for you, Mr. Lauby. You talked a lot about gas electric interdependence and interconnected systems. Can you tell us what recommendations you might have for what steps need to be taken to address this interconnected problem?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, or Chairman Willie Phillips. I'm taken aback because I don't like to plan on hopes and dreams. Even if in fact we have an average winter, that doesn't mean we won't have a cold spell during the winter. So let's make note of that. Amen. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. But to get to the point on interconnectedness, in 1965, I know you all remember the blackout in New York City. And what we learned from that was there are huge benefits to being interconnected electrically, but then there are also risks. And now risk includes what happens on one system impacts another system. And as a result, in the wisdom of the industry at the time and government, two organizations were set up. One was the Electric Power Research Institute, EPRI, and also then NERC, then at the time national, then eventually North American, to set the criteria for how we're going to operate this interconnected system so we can get the value out of that interconnection, but then on the other hand, manage the risks to that interconnection. Now I tell you today, we have an interconnected gas electric system. What happens on one system doesn't impact the other system. When a generator interconnects to the electric power system, we know exactly what standards it's going to follow, how it's going to provide frequency, voltage, ramping, all the fundamentals of essential reliability services, and oh, by the way, megawatts. When we interconnect now with a gas system that does not have those kind of rules, i.e. a wellhead that, for example, is it going to dry? Is it going to heat? Is it going to be winterized? Is it going to provide sufficient pressures? These are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves when we look at this interconnected system. The compressor stations are not only do we worry about cybersecurity, but also will it provide sufficient redundancy? So if you lose one compressor station, will you then have sufficient pressure from another? So will we have enough reserve gas and pressure in the pipelines when we lose large amounts of renewable energy as a result of too much wind, too little wind, too much sunlight, or not enough sunlight, excuse me, not too much sunlight, not possible. So these are the kind of answers we need to get to and really kind of call for the industry to stand up together and lead to an organization that provides reliable standards for this interconnected energy system. And I say that if we even go to a hydrogen system where we are dispersing hydrogen through pipelines, we're still going to need these kinds of standards going forward to that system of the future. So thank you for your question, Chairman Phillips.
Thank you for your comments. I echo and underscore your call for industry to come together and do what they need, what they should do, which is to have an organization that has responsibility and authority for the natural gas system reliability. So thank you for being here again, Mr. Lauby, and thank you to the entire team. Madam Deputy Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, I need to recognize the other members of the team I failed to recognize. Clarence Bell and Thomas Pinkston from the Office of Energy Policy Innovation, and Maria Hanley from the Office of Electric Reliability. Thank you. Okay, the last item for presentation and discussion this morning is A4, the fiscal year 2023 report on enforcement. This will be a presentation by Kirsten Johansson from the Office of Enforcement. She is accompanied by Kurt Jacobs and David Mason from the Office of Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Chairman Phillips and Commissioners. Today, the Office of Enforcement, OE, is releasing its 17th annual report on enforcement. As in previous years, OE staff prepared this report to provide information about OE's activities over the last fiscal year. This report discusses the activities performed by OE's Division of Investigations, DOI, Audits and Accounting, DAA, and Analytics and Surveillance, DAS. I am joined today by my colleagues Kurt Jacobs from DAA and David Mason from DAS. As noted in the report, OE's enforcement priorities in fiscal year 2023 focus on 5 distinct areas. First, fraud and market manipulation. Second, serious violations of reliability standards. Third, anti-competitive conduct. Fourth, threats to the nation's energy infrastructure and associated impacts on the environment and surrounding communities. And fifth, conduct that threatens transparency in regulated markets. The report summarizes audit findings and settlements, which were approved by the Commission and are publicly available on eLibrary. In addition, the report discusses public litigation filings, both in federal courts and Commission ALJs. OE's report also includes a discussion of non-public activities, including summaries of investigations, self-reports, surveillance inquiries, and surveillance inquiries that were closed without further action by DOI and DAS. The report additionally includes illustrative examples of market monitor referrals received by OE that staff reviewed and closed without opening an investigation. These summaries can be helpful to companies seeking to comply with the Commission's regulations and orders. To maintain confidentiality, the companies and individuals whose conduct was under review in these matters are not identified in these summaries. The report also provides a summary of enforcement staff's work on the joint reliability inquiry concerning the December 2022 cold weather event. After presenting its key findings and recommendations on September 21st, 2023, the inquiry team issued its final report on November 7th, 2023. The report includes illustrated compliance alerts issued by DAA that cover over a dozen distinct areas where there have been consistent concerns or non-compliance of significant impact. The report also describes the audits completed in fiscal year 2023, summarizing staff's findings of non-compliance and providing context for audits that resulted in refunds and recoveries. Additionally, the report summarizes the 380 proceedings in which DAA decided certain accounting matters under the delegated authority or advised the Commission, and describes DAA's administration of the Commission's financial reporting filing requirements and programs, including electric quarterly reports, EQRs, and other various forms. The report provides a comprehensive review of DAS's surveillance programs and describes how the division analyzed transactional and market data in fiscal year 2023 to detect potential manipulation, anti-competitive behavior, and other irregular activities in the energy markets. In fiscal year 2023, the Commission approved 12 settlement agreements resolving investigations and litigated matters. 9 of the settled investigations involved claims of market manipulation, tariff violations, and misrepresentations prohibited by the Commission's duty of candor rule. These settlements totaled approximately $33.39 million, which included approximately $11.72 million in civil penalties and disgorgement of approximately $21.67 million. The additional settlements resolved 1 district court litigation matter for $4 million in disgorgement, 1 order to show cause proceeding for a $4.4 million civil penalty, and 1 United States Court of Appeals matter on remand to the Commission for a $10.75 million civil penalty. In fiscal year 2023, DOI opened 19 new investigations and brought 9 pending investigations to closure with no action. The investigation that staff closed with no action included matters in which staff found that there was no violation, that there was insufficient evidence to conclude that a violation had occurred, or that a violation should not be subject to sanctions. DOI also closed 172 self-reports without further action, closed 3 market monitor referrals without opening full investigations, and resolved 241 calls made to the Commission's enforcement hotline. In addition, in fiscal year 2023, DOI continued to litigate 3 cases on the Commission's behalf in federal district court, one of which was fully settled in this fiscal year. In fiscal year 2023, DAA completed 9 audits of public utility, natural gas, and oil companies covering a wide array of topics. These audit results resulted in the 68 findings of non-compliance and 332 recommendations for corrective action, and directed $33 million in refunds and other recoveries. DAA also assessed EQR submittals received from over 3,000 entities each quarter as to the timeliness and, through automated validations, the accuracy of the data. Furthermore, DAA administered and oversaw compliance with FERC's financial reporting forms, which in fiscal year 2023 involved assessing the Commission's receipt of approximately 2,600 financial reporting form submittals. In fiscal year 2023, DAS continued monitoring for potential market manipulation and other irregular activities in the markets. Natural gas surveillance screens produced approximately 24,000 screen trips for review by DAS, which resulted in 27 natural gas surveillance inquiries and 3 referrals to DOI for investigation. On the electric side, each month during fiscal year 2023, DAS ran and reviewed 107 electric surveillance screens, as well as monthly, hourly, and intra-hour sub-screens and reports for over 41,000 hub and pricing nodes within the 6 ISOs and RTOs. The electric surveillance screens produced approximately 567,000 screen trips, which resulted in 43 electric surveillance inquiries and 6 referrals to DOI for investigation. In fiscal year 2023, DAS also engaged in enhanced surveillance involving coordinated efforts by both natural gas and electric surveillance teams into disruptive market events related to Winter Storm Elliott and to a period of high energy prices in the West during the winter of 2022 to 2023. This enhanced surveillance into both market events is ongoing into fiscal year 2024. During fiscal year 2023, DAS also worked with DOI on approximately 60 investigations involving allegations of manipulation in the Commission jurisdictional natural gas and electricity markets or violations of tariff provisions. In these efforts, DAS first provided analytical and data-based assessments of market activity related to ongoing investigations. Second, supported DOI in its fact-finding. And third, calculated the unjust profits and market harm resulting from alleged violations to assist with determining a civil penalty recommendation under the Commission's penalty guidelines. Lastly, DAS conducts analytical reviews of wholesale electric market-based rate transactions to detect potential exercise of market power. During fiscal year 2023, DAS staff reviewed over 2.6 million market-based rates transactions filed through the Commission's EQRs by all market-based rate holders selling wholesale energy into the bilateral markets. Copies of OE's annual report are now available on the Commission's website. This concludes the presentation. My colleague and I will be happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten, and to the team for the presentation. I also appreciate OE's staff's work for the year and for this presentation as well. It is critically important that we have appropriate oversight of our energy markets to ensure that they continue to serve consumers who depend on reliable and affordable sources of energy. Enforcement is an important piece of this puzzle, and I appreciate all the work that OE staff does throughout the year. I have one question for you. One of the things I get asked about all the time are these energy price spikes and market disruptions that we see from time to time. You mentioned enhanced surveillance. Can you tell us a little bit about how our enhanced surveillance might be able to help protect consumers against these price spikes?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. DAS conducts enhanced surveillance around weather events and other market disruptions to determine whether any market participants have engaged in behavior that contributed to or took advantage of high prices in the natural gas and electric markets. This enhanced surveillance may involve DAS seeking additional trade data from the Intercontinental Exchange and market participants to augment its normal data feeds, conducting outreach to market participants, other federal agencies or state regulators, and developing new screening methods that utilize additional data or account for the changes in the markets caused by the ongoing event. Where warranted, these reviews can lead to further inquiry and investigation. As we noted in our presentation, DAS has 2 ongoing enhanced surveillance efforts into Winter Storm Elliott and the winter 2022-2023 Western energy price spike.
Thank you, David, and thank you again, Kirsten, for the presentation. Mr. Jacobs, thank you so much for being here. I turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Danley.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Clements.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten and Kurt and Dave. I also want to thank Janelle and Jeremy and all of the Office of Enforcement for their good and impressive work over the last year. As the report shows, as your presentation emphasizes, OE continues to implement strong and effective auditing, surveillance, and enforcement programs, and all 3 of these are critical to the Commission's ability to satisfy our obligations under the statutes we administer. And I'm glad you asked that question. I particularly want to commend your office for establishing, I think in response to the winter storms, this enhanced surveillance effort. Certainly those efforts to detect and prevent market manipulation in times of system stress are vital to maintaining the integrity of the energy markets and to keeping others, policymakers, legislators, and stakeholders informed around the country. So good work, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Christie.
I want to thank Janelle Burdick for the record. But Janelle's team is really great, and you all do a super job. You all do, and I think what President Reagan said about the Soviet Union, which is trust but verify. You all do a good job on the verification part. So I think you do a really, really super job. Thank you for that annual report. I want to do an introduction and an apology. The introduction is I want to introduce Bree Sinclair, who is in my office temporarily on detail while we had a leave of absence from a member. And Bree came from OE, and that's why it leads to my apology, because I've now taken 3 of your really good lawyers for my office. So you all have been a font of good lawyers, and I'm sure Janelle was real happy to give all these lawyers up to my office. But I want to thank you for that. Bree coming from OE, of course, naturally, what I asked her to do was to do certificates, because that's like the best way to learn how a commissioner's office works, and it's the easiest way to adapt. So she got to do certificates this month. But anyway, so I want to thank Bree for all her good work, and thank you for your good work. And with that, I'm sorry I missed your breakfast. A little bit busy.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Christie. Okay, thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary. I think before we conclude, are there any closing remarks from any of the commissioners?
Nope, nothing. Thank you.
Hearing none, we are adjourned. That's pretty smooth.